Welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us again. We are here today with a really wonderful group of parents of current and just graduated students. So they have some great advice to give you today. Welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. Cool. Technology is fun right now, isn't it? Once again, my name is Lindsay Bray. I am the Senior Coordinator for Parent and Family Services. So we are here to help you help your student. So as I said, we've got a great group of parents. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their parent or their student, what it was like for them here on campus, and then their biggest piece of advice that they've got for you. And then we will open it up for questions. So Susan, do you want to go ahead and go first for us?
Hi, I'm Susan Bingham. My husband and I are proud alums of the University of Memphis. We met while we were in school there. We were both in the Mighty Sound of the South drumline. We have our son, Harrison, just graduated from the University of Memphis. He was also in the Mighty Sound of the South drumline. He graduated with a degree in sports management. We have a daughter who is currently a rising sophomore, and she's also in the Mighty Sound of the South drumline. She is a music performance major. So they're both presidential scholars. Harrison and Kate both live on campus. Harrison lived on campus for 2 years and then had a rental house for 2 years. Kate has been living on campus and plans to again, hopefully this fall. Anyway, they're just, they've loved school. They've loved being Tigers. It's kind of all in the family. They're third generation Tigers. They had a great experience. As far as any advice for me to pass on to you is for you to encourage your child to make the most of this time. College is such a special time in our lives, and there are so many resources available at the University of Memphis. There's something for every student there. There is a club, an organization, a group, something, an on-campus job. There is some way for your student, whether or not they live on campus or not, to get really plugged in and to have a great college experience. And there are so many resources to help them succeed. When I was in your shoes with our son, our oldest, I can remember being overwhelmed with the amount of resources that the university has. I remember one of our speakers saying at one of our kind of like sub meetings during the orientation process that really there is no reason for your child not to graduate, that there are just so many people, organizations, groups, whatever, there for your student to take advantage of. So I encourage you to encourage your student to really take advantage of all of these things that the University of Memphis has to offer. It's a great place to be. So I'd like to be the first to welcome you as a parent. We're so glad you're part of the Tiger family.
Thank you so much, Susan. Tom, do you want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, sure. My name is Tom Gould. I've had 3 children attend the university. My one son, Jack, graduated from the criminal justice program and is in the law school at the University of Memphis. Then I have a daughter, Lindsay, who graduated from the Fogelman Business School and is working in Memphis and returning to also pick up her MBA degree. And then I have a son, Sam, who was attending, but due to health reasons had to drop out, and hopefully he'll return when he's doing better and finish his degree. So I'm a big fan of the university. In fact, we even bought a couple homes on the edge of campus so that they could live there and be part of the university community rather than being at home, even though we are basically Memphis residents. So they've spent their entire careers on the campus in some fashion. I think the biggest thing that I would recommend, based on my experience, is that parents gain access to their children's information. You will hear more about the HIPAA, which is in regard to access to health information, medical information, and FERPA, which gives you the right to get access to your child's academic information. And by that, I mean their school email, which of course was highly resisted at the outset until they understood they could get their own Gmail accounts for their personal use, but that I wanted to have access to the school's email system, which I do have, and also that under FERPA, I had access to grades, graduation tracking, which is a tremendous tool that all parents need to take a look at, along with information from their courses and their teachers and their grades. It sounds like I might have been over invested in them, but I can tell you that having the access to the information allowed me to be very uninvolved on a day-to-day basis, because I could simply find what I was looking for to make sure everybody was doing all right academically. And it was a very good tool. And on the health side, the HIPAA release forms would allow you to work with your child's care providers if for some reason on campus there was a medical need or a medication need. So whether you are residents of the city or you're living out of town and your child's here on their own, I would really recommend HIPAA access and FERPA access just to be able to, remain in what I would call important contact with them. A long time ago, I was given the instructions that my job as a parent was to provide the roots for my children to grow on and the wings for them to fly. And what I found was that first year or two in college is not probably a good time to take off and start flying, that the roots need to be maintained and then gradually lessened. And that's kind of the lesson I learned with the 3 children going to school here.
Deb and Greg? Oh, I think they might be frozen. Or
Hey, we're Deb and Greg Price. Are we there?
Click on it.
yes, yeah, go ahead. I think we're having just a little bit of issues with Deb and Greg, but we'll get them back real quick. So are you still there, Deb? Okay, so we'll go ahead and get to some of our questions and then we can introduce them in just a minute once the video gets restarted. Thank you all so much. So one of the biggest questions that we get, and Tom kind of alluded to it a little bit, is kind of some of the conversations that you should have kind of with your students. Susan, are there any other big conversations that you really had with your student before they started at the university?
Sure. I think probably one of the best things that my husband and I did with each of our kids before they entered college was just, like maybe a week or 2 before band camp started in the fall semester, we had a special family dinner with that child. So it was just my husband, myself, and that one child, fixed their favorite dinner, sat around the kitchen table, and my husband and I had a list of topics that we wanted to talk about with them. They had their laptop. And we really kind of covered everything that I could think about, from grades, scholarships, expectations, budgeting. And we were the parents, we don't know any passwords. We never knew any passwords in high school or junior high. We have not known any passwords through college for anything, or email or anything like that. We really just kind of put the expectation on them that no surprises. We wanted to see grades, obviously, and talk about that at the end of the semester, but we knew what our kids could do. And we just said, let's just don't have any surprises along the way. So if you're struggling in something, obviously wanted to know about that. But when we had that discussion, we talked about the money we thought they need. We talked about their meal plan and maybe what other money they needed. We talked about dorm life. We just tried to talk about everything. And I'll be honest, my husband's an engineer and I'm a former teacher, so we're kind of list people anyway. This was not like the first time we had obviously talked about all these things with our kids, but it was just that moment that we all knew we were all on the same page. I do think it's also important in having a discussion with your child about their scholarships. Because most scholarships come with strings attached, whether it's a GPA, scholarship hours, or an honors class, some type of attendance. There's something involved there, and it's very important for your student to know what those strings are to make sure that they can maintain their scholarships. The Hope Scholarship has strings attached, and many scholarships, or I should say some scholarships, change during the course of their college education, where maybe that dollar amount or the expectations change between their freshman year and their senior year. So we just made sure that they knew the ins and outs of their scholarship. We made sure they knew how to manage their My Memphis page. We weren't managing it, but we wanted to make sure they could manage it, and they did. So we just have really kind of taken I think the attitude of, having that discussion, and then we check in with them. And I mean, obviously we check in with them as many times as we can without trying to, invade in their space. So sometimes it's not every day. I kind of sometimes think that no news is sometimes, that's okay. And then sometimes it's not. I think your child, and it's not a one size fits all, obviously, but we just tried to on the onset make sure that the expectations were out there, and hopefully they understood what was expected of them. And then obviously tweaks are made. We change meal plans during, after a first year or something like that. So I just think it is important. I think the communication aspect of having those expectations out there and then checking in with your student but still letting them have the responsibility.
Deb and Greg, so glad you're back.
I think we're back.
You are back. Totally understand. Technology is not always our friend right now. So I want to let you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your students.
Well, we're Deb and Greg Price. We're from Jackson, Mississippi, and our daughter Cappy just graduated in May. This past May, she majored in political science and Spanish, and she has a job starting in July. She'll be teaching Spanish at Marion High School in Marion, Arkansas. And the whole Memphis experience has just been great for all of us. She's been great. As far as keeping in touch, the only thing I would do, I sent her a text every morning just telling her my schedule, since sometimes it changed. And she always responded back with a text, and most of the time called me during the day. We still call each other every day. I mean, she just calls me, we just check in, but it's nothing. I never felt like I had to keep up with her. The one thing I stressed was, you'll need to graduate in 4 years, honey. That was the main thing. And she knew it. She knew it. She got an emerging leader scholarship. And so she knew what was required of that. We just never had any trouble. We could only think of one bad phone call, one teary phone call the entire 4 years. And that was when she went out with somebody that she thought was the one, and he turned out not to be the one. And that's been the only bad thing in the whole 4 years she was there. It was nothing but great. She loves living up there now, and is looking forward to starting work. So it's just been a great experience. We just love the University of Memphis.
Well, I think that's great that you all kind of mentioned that too, is that expectations that you're setting with your student before they come here so that they understand, because we all know 17 and 18-year-olds don't always have a lot of common sense. And if you don't tell them what they want, what you want, then they don't know on the front end. So Deb and Greg, could you talk a little bit about, for our parents who are living out of kind of the general Memphis close area, can you talk a little bit about if you anything that you did to kind of help with that distance, or were there any issues, or kind of how you stayed connected?
There really weren't any issues. Right at first, freshman year, she may have come home once a month, maybe. But once she got her apartment, I mean, like now, we were just trying to think. She did come home for Mother's Day. But prior to that, it was when she was on her way to New Orleans at the beginning of February. We pretty much go up to Memphis to see her. So, and we just make it a vacation for us. That's what we've done. But we don't ever feel like we're out of touch, because she calls every day. So we just don't ever feel like we're missing her. She calls and FaceTimes all the time. So, but it's always at her initiation. I've never felt like I had to check up on her, ever. Never done that. And talking about grades, being honest, I relied on her to tell me the grades. I never knew the grades. And when we would get letters saying that she was on the honor roll, then we figured, okay, she's doing well. And she did really well. She graduated magna cum laude. So did really well. We just never had any issues the whole 4 years, truly.
So Susan or Tom, do you want to speak to what it's kind of like to have your student close by, and how often you actually saw them too?
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. We're having 3 kids all at the university at the same time. And in the way they were living, I mean, they were scattered about a little bit, but we did make plans as a family that we would come over towards campus and have a meal, especially with the boys. I'd watch sports, or we'd go to a football game together, which was always fun to do, or a basketball game. They both, all the kids joined fraternities and sororities, which is not necessary. I mean, I went to college and I didn't happen to be in a fraternity, but it's been an interesting development. My sons, drifted away a little bit after graduation, but my daughter is still very close friends with her sorority sisters. In fact, they're sharing the house that she has right now. And she travels with them on vacations, and that was a very good connection for her. It's not necessary. There are a lot of, I think there's 20,000+ students at the university, and I don't know the percentage, but I think it's around maybe 16% or so are in a Greek organization. I know there's hundreds of other organizations to participate in. As far as time we spent with them, we pretty much left them alone. My background, access to their grades and so forth was really for my personal benefit. I will tell you one story. I mean, it's not a story, unfortunately, but my one son, I left him alone to the point that one of my sons got into trouble because of drugs. And it was serious. I mean, to the point that he's still incapacitated. And that was 4 years ago. And I just did not spend enough time really communicating with them. I would check up on them. I'd look at their grades. I'd look at their courses, sort of perfunctory things. But I really could have spent a little bit more time, particularly with the boys, than I did. And I forget who mentioned about the fact that no news is sometimes good news, but sometimes it's not good news.
Yeah.
And in our case, the no news turned out to be very bad news. And the one son, skated by, the other son did not, and he got sick. And I actually worked with Lindsay, who's a tremendous resource, by the way, for any parents whose children do run into problems. Call Lindsay Bray. I called her, and she took care of my son, getting him out of school, working with the administration and us. Hopefully he'll go back one day. But that is a service to keep in mind, is that family service. And what Lindsay does is she knows everybody, and she can be a tremendous help if your child is suffering or has issues, or you as parents have questions. I mean, call her, because that's what she does. And she'll get you where you need to go if she can't answer the question. So, all things considered, they had very successful careers. But, the hiccup, the stumble along the way with my one son was a good lesson for me, that sometimes, the fact things are quiet doesn't mean things are good. And I'm not saying that to scare families. I'm just saying that's the way it was for me.
I'd like to piggyback just a little bit on what Tom said about him talking about getting together with dinners and stuff like that. To be a local family, if you live here in the Memphis area and your student goes to the University of Memphis, you really have the best of both worlds for your student does. Even if they don't live on campus, they can be on campus all during the day with their classes, involved in different organizations, and really have their own space, and then still be home if they live at home. Our kids, like Tom's did not live at home. They lived on campus or in a rental house, but we still would see them. Our son probably more than our daughter. He loves home cooked food, so he would come home every once in a while for a home cooked meal. And sometimes just on the weekends after a big football game or something like that, if they were really tired and just wanted to be in their own beds at home for a little bit. But just because you live in Memphis doesn't mean that they won't have that kind of college experience. It's really a great balance to be here and for your students to go to the University of Memphis. They can even get a job on campus, all the different things they can be involved in and really have that college experience, but still being able to be home, which is always nice.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite stories that a parent ever told me was their student couldn't live on campus, but in their house, they actually kind of moved around some bedrooms and they ended up decorating it like they would a dorm room, and kind of moved her in when everyone was doing move in. And it was one of the best stories, just to see how much that family really cared and really wanted to make it an experience of going to college, even though she couldn't live on campus. So yes, as an in-city student or even living at home, there's some great ways to do that. So I know some of your students lived on campus. Do you want to talk about that experience a little bit? And are there any tips that you have for parents whose students live on campus? Susan.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. As far as like tips and things like that, our kids had great experiences living on campus. They really loved they were able to work the money out with their scholarships, and it was a convenience. I'll be honest. It was convenient for them, especially being in band. Getting up, sometimes their call times were 4 o'clock in the morning. So when you roll out of the bed of a dorm and can be at the CFA to go check in with the band, it's just a lot easier than having to drive and park. That being said, it was convenience. As far as tips about moving in and that sort of thing, things that you need, Lindsay knows I love move-in day at the university. It's just fun and festive. Who knows what that'll look like this year? But I am hopeful that things are going to keep getting back to normal. But it really is a fun day. It's crazy, but less is more. Both of our kids, even our daughters, sometimes daughters have kind of a reputation of having more stuff in their dorm rooms. Both of our kids were pretty Spartan in their dorm rooms, and we were thankful for that. But there are some items that they truly, when I've asked them in reference to doing these parent panels, what are some things you'd recommend to other families? They talk about having a lamp because the lighting in the rooms, there's usually one overhead light. So a couple of lamps, a desk lamp, a bedside lamp, Ziploc bags. They both mentioned Ziploc bags. They just love those. They just would come in handy for so many things. One of those power strips is very handy to have, and so you can have multiple things plugged in. Garbage can liners, because the kids are responsible for taking out their trash. At least where my kids lived, they were. Shower shoes and a shower caddy, something very easy to tote back and forth, to the bathrooms. But really, they both had great experiences. As far as clothes, they really don't need that much. I mean, maybe a nice outfit or two, just in case you need that. And then even in the winter, it doesn't get very cold. So just a fleece or a hoodie or something like that. My kids were fine with that. I know everybody's different. It's not one size fits all. But things seem to multiply in those dorm rooms, even if they haven't brought very much. So when we moved our daughter out because of the COVID here back in the March, it did seem like she had quite a bit more things, but still, the big tubs, those are just so helpful too, just to put things in and carry them out. So those are some things that we found were helpful.
Deb and Greg, did you have any tips for move-in or things you've realized afterwards that your student needed?
One thing that I remember going to get, we went right to the Target by campus as we were moving her in. They're on wheels, the little drawer units, not very expensive at all. They have wheels on the bottom, and they were like 3 drawers to a unit, just little plastic units. And I think she got 2 of those. And I want to say they even fit right under the bed in the dorm. But those were so convenient. And we got them right at the Target, right by, not too far from campus. But that's something we went out and got right away. She saw she was going to need that. And that was about it. But I do agree with the less is more, because the rooms aren't that big. But she and her roommate were able to split the room up. They each had refrigerators, and they were able to have both of those. They had it set up really, really nicely. And I love Centennial. I loved the fact that they had 24-hour people at the desk. It was real calming for me. I mean, I didn't worry at all. I really loved her year there. She was ready to move out at the end of the year, but I loved having her in the dorm.
Very secure.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Yeah. So just as a warning to our parents who do not live kind of in the area or is not familiar with campus, there's a Target and a Bed Bath & Beyond that are relatively close and a few grocery stores, but like Walmart and Sam's or Costco are not very close to campus. So those are definitely a bit farther out in terms of where campus is located. Tom, did you have anything that your students felt like they really needed when they moved in or had to get later?
Well, I was going to say the two boys in particular actually started at a different university and then came back to Memphis. They had done well and kept their they had scholarships at the other school, then they came back here. And initially they went into a dorm for the summer. And I can remember something I learned pretty quickly. Of course, I'd gone to college myself at one point, but don't bother to give them a lot of linen because basically the way the boys handled it was we set up their beds, and then when they came home for the next holiday, which is probably 3 months later, they brought all their laundry back, including all their linen.
Yep.
So that I suspect they washed their linen probably twice a semester, maybe. And I remember my wife putting up things on the window and decorating the room. And of course, none of that was really worth the trouble. I don't know, I think girls are a little bit different than that. My daughters, I've had two daughters go to college, and they were much more involved in their room and how it looked and creating a certain ambiance. But the boys, it's strictly a place to sleep and keep your clothes. And it was funny to see the difference between how my daughter went into the dorm and how my sons went into the dorm. The other thing was meal plans. That's something else that I was going to mention. If your child is a commuter, and a lot of the students at the university do commute, they have the sort of mandatory, I don't know what they're called now. They're not like Tiger Dollars. There's a name for them.
They're called Tiger Eats now, the $300.
Oh, yes, the $300, the Tiger Eats. Those were great. I found that in buying a really robust meal plan, I wasted a lot of money because they do better, like when they're on campus, they grab things to eat. Some of those dollars you get are usable off campus. I assume that's still the case. At some local restaurants. And what they liked was being able to pick up coffee, pick up a quick meal here or there. And they really underutilized their actual meal plans. I mean, it's all individualized by student, of course. But if they're commuting or if they're in the dorm, I mean, be judicious in picking your meal plan because there's a certain flexibility that the students seem to like. And buying, the most robust meal plan, I'm not sure it was worth us doing that. But that's sort of child by child. There's probably no one rule, no one size fits all. But no, they all had good experiences. I mean, the dorms were great. And then moving on to the edge of campus and rental units and all, that was great. I mean, I can tell you this, that I've had, 5 children go to college now, and 1, 2, 3 go to graduate school. And that the University of Memphis is the best deal there is in terms of the quality of education, whether it's the graduate schools or the undergraduate schools, and what the cost is. It's unbelievable. I mean, unless your child just needs to get away from home and go to another city or just experience being truly by themselves. The best thing we found when we moved to Memphis, we came here from New Jersey 15 years ago, was the University of Memphis. And believe me, we're using it to death. I'm going to have another child coming back for graduate school in psychology next fall. So I think they'll be glad at some point to get rid of the Goulds, just that we're taking up a lot of space. But we love the university. It's a huge, huge financial benefit if you have several children going to college. I mean, it's been great for us.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a multi-student discount.
Well, I actually communicated with President Rudd, and he said, well, if you were a public servant with 4 students going here, we'd consider it. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I work for the federal government. And he said, oh, well, how about 5 students? And I said, well, I have a 5th one that'll be coming maybe next year. I'll get back to you about that. So who knows, I may have broken new ground.
Yeah. Like, So Deb and Greg, did your students have a meal plan while they're here, or did you all make any of those decisions or have any thoughts on that one?
She was in Centennial freshman year, and they had the meal plan that went along just from being in Centennial. And I was thinking every year that she needed a meal plan. She never wanted one. She never got one. She took care of things herself. So I always thought that the commuter meal plan would be the thing to get, but she never wanted to do it. So she took care of meals on her own. That with I think they were called Tiger Dollars at the time. She would have that, but she never did get a meal plan after freshman year. She didn't.
Susan, did your students kind of utilize the meal plans? And I know you mentioned changing yours up a little bit.
Yes, we did. We got Harrison his freshman year. He likes to eat, teenage boy. And we didn't get him the highest meal plan, like the most like one, but we got him like a step or two down, and it was actually still too much. And you gotta love college students. They figure out ways, right, to make them, to stretch those dollars and stretch those meals. And he found out, if you get a takeout box at Tiger Den, which is where those, if you get 7 meals a week or whatever it is, those are from the Tiger Den, and it's an all you can eat a restaurant. But he found out if you get a takeout box, then you can stuff that box as full as you want it. It doesn't have to close. You can put as much in there as you want. So, you'd have your dinner that night, and you probably have lunch and breakfast the next day, and, snacks or whatever. So they learn the smart ways, I think, kind of around that. But we did actually gradually step down on him the next year. Our daughter, Kate, this year, again, we start out with an even lower plan for her because she's just not a big eater. And honestly, she's not even going to do a meal plan this year at all. She just is happy we'd go to Sam's and get her little macaroni and cheese cups or ramen noodles or Chef Boyardee. That she just really likes that, or she just likes sandwiches, to make a sandwich in the dorm. So she has a fridge and a microwave. So again, they are pretty generous with the meals, and it's funny how they really do seem to stretch quite a bit.
So a question we got from online was, did any of your students live in the LLC? No. Do you want to speak to that at all, Susan, about if they liked it or anything
Sure.
about?
Yeah, the LLC is great. Our daughter had a great experience there. I felt just like our son had lived at Centennial, that it was very similar. I mean, just very secure. I think all the dorms are very secure. I think she had 3 card swipes before she could ever even get back to her room, if I'm not mistaken. And then that was another card swipe to get into her room. So yes, very a good situation. They're kind of like pods, so that, once you get back to a main hallway area that you have to swipe to get in, you get through another door, and then within that door, there are, 10, 15, 20 dorm rooms, whatever it may be. I think it's probably more like 10 or 12. And in the center of those dorm rooms, it's kind of shaped in a big rectangle where the rooms are on the perimeter. And in the center section, there are the bathrooms. And at the very far end of that rectangle, there is a common area. And so she really enjoyed it. And then even within the dorm, there was a classroom or several classrooms. She actually had an 8 o'clock class in her dorm. I'm like, how lucky are you, right? To get up and just roll out of bed and go to class. She loved that. And then there are also other little spaces within the LLC. She actually did quite a bit of studying, and some of those common area spaces she found was good for her. So it's very conveniently located to the LLC. So she had a great experience.
Oh, hey, Lindsay, if I can mention one thing. Susan mentioned about the security at the dorm. Just because of the nature of the work that I do, and having myself lived on the edge of campus and the kids living in the area, it's a very safe campus. Memphis gets a bad rap about being a dangerous city. And again, because of what I do, I know there are dangerous areas. They're not the areas our students are going into. And of course, in any city, you can find bad spots to be in. But the university and the university police, with whom I've worked for a long time, they're tremendous. And there are a lot of blue light facilities on campus. Because it's a commuter school, there are also thousands of students all the time on campus up into pretty late in the evening, because there's a large population of evening college classes, and your students will take those. So I will say this, you know, I've been to a lot of different campuses over time, and it's a very safe environment. And that's important for particularly people from out of town who are going to leave their children here, more so than commuting students who are more familiar with the city. I wouldn't hesitate to have, and in fact, my children still do live on the campus more or less. And I was really pleased with that. I didn't know how it would be, and I live there myself. And it's great. I mean, the police, the Blue Line service, bus service, all those things are conducive to a safe campus. It's a very safe campus, a very good experience.
Susan or Deb, Deb and Greg, did your student have any experience with that?
I just wanted to let people know, I still remember from when we were at orientation with her 4 years ago. And when we told people from Jackson where she was going to be going, so many people were worried about her being in Memphis. That not a good situation. When we went to orientation, I still remember the head of the campus police saying that he has 7 police officers patrolling the campus 24/7. And that, hearing that, I wasn't worried at all after that. I wasn't worried at all. Just one real quick recommendation I could make, if I could say something now, one thing to get would be a printer. If they could get a printer, that's one thing we got for our daughter, and she didn't think she would need it because she said that the printing center is open 24 hours. And I said, yes, but I didn't want you to have to be out walking around late at night. So we're going to go ahead and get you a printer. And that was one of the best things. She was able to print stuff off in her room. And also, I remember her saying that she made so many friends because they didn't have printers, and they were so excited when they found out she had one that she was able to run off things for friends. So a printer, that was a great investment freshman year for us to get for her.
Susan, did you want to say anything about campus safety?
I did, yes. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on Tom, because what Tom said was so great. And I totally agree. There is a service I'm sure that parents are going to learn about if you haven't already, called Tiger Patrol, that if your student is on campus late, and Tiger Patrol runs between certain hours on campus at night and in the wee hours in the morning, that your student can call and somebody will take them back to their car or their dorm or go with them, so that they will just make sure they feel safe and have somebody with them. There's also the Live Safe app that your student can get on their phone. I work at the university. I have it on my phone so that alerts are sent to you through that app, and you can also contact help or get somebody to kind of like virtually be with you as you walk on campus. And I have to say too, since from the years of me being there in the late 80s and early 90s to now, there are so many more people on campus at night. And the campus is so well lit. They have these new LED lights or whatever those are. They're just, it's super bright. When we have been on campus at night, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, it's nothing like it used to be. I mean, there are usually many, many people out and about. And also my daughter, I remember asking her, because some nights with band, if they had a late game, they really didn't get back to their dorms till midnight or after. And they usually would always find a pal. There was somebody else that, you know, that lived at the LLC that they'd kind of walk in a little group with, where she even had her car and had something she had to return to campus at night. She told us every single time when she parked in the parking lot for the LLC, there was always a policeman right there in that area. She always saw a police car with a policeman in it. So that's also very reassuring, I think, as a parent to know that. So we always felt very safe. Of course, you know, just to have common sense, you know, like we do anywhere we go, about trying to travel in groups and being careful. But the university is a very safe place to be. I did want to also comment on Deb and Craig, because I know, again, printers are great. I just wanted to say too, on the flip side, and again, it's not one size fits all. Some dorms, they will print for you. I know in both of our kids' dorms, in the LLC and in Centennial, Harrison and Kate, neither one had a printer. They could actually print to the lobby of that dorm, the front desk, I should say, and you could go print up, because you get so many copies, 500 copies, I believe. And so they didn't even actually had to go anywhere to go get pick up copies. So there are several printing stations across the campus now, and not just the library or printer services, but many of the colleges and the different buildings have printers, and students are able to print to those.
And many times a lot of our stuff gets turned in online too. So, but yes, it is whatever works for your student. So one last question we've gotten from online is, did your student have a car their first year? Do you think if they did they need it? Kind of how did your student get around with those things?
Well, I don't mind answering that. For their first year, they did not have a car. Even though we all lived here and we had cars, we did not want them out in their cars. We wanted them on campus and being part of that campus life. And I was going to mention this anyway. One of the neat things about the campus is it's a pretty short walk up to Poplar Avenue. And I can tell you that I took the bus down to the courthouse myself in the mornings a lot because I would just walk over from where I was living. You can get it just about anywhere you want between friends, fraternity, sorority brothers. Uber is a huge benefit to these college students. I don't think they need a car based on normal living requirements. Even shopping, groceries, things of that sort. Maybe by their second or third year, if they need a car, that's fine. But you can get to the football games. You can go anywhere you need to go as a college student without your own vehicle. And as you make friends and as you're there for a while, they never had an issue. We finally gave them a car just to get them out of our driveway. But they did not need them as students. That's just my kids. We wanted them on the campus.
Deb and Greg, did your student bring a car?
She did because, being from 3 hours away, she had a bit. Truthfully, at least the freshman year, she really only used it to come home. She didn't use it around campus that much. And second year, she lived in an apartment, so she would go to a parking lot for school. But all in all, she really didn't use. She probably could have gotten by, especially freshman year, could have gotten by without it. But since she was from out of town and that's how she got home and up to school, she had her car, but she really didn't use it that much until maybe junior year when she started working at different places. That's probably when she really started using it. Yeah.
Susan?
Yes, both of our kids did have cars, but I do agree with Tom and Deb and Greg both about they really don't probably need them a whole lot, unless they're just coming to and from home. The Blue Line is a bus service that the university runs, and now, especially since the campus's footprint has extended, there's a lot more going on now on the Park Avenue campus, and we have the law school downtown. I know that the Blue Line makes trips all over, and they even make a run to Target and Kroger, I believe, every week. And I saw a Blue Line bus in the drive-thru of McDonald's, so I'm sure there was a story there, but the Blue Line does get around and is very helpful to students. So I think your student would totally be fine without a car.
And these days, they do go to Kroger. They go to the Kroger parking lot. I think there's a Kroger and like a dollar store. And I believe that's Fridays. And then I think there's a Target run on Thursdays. And that shopping center also has a grocery store as well. So students have 2 days they can get a grocery store. And both of those grocery stores, so there's a Kroger and a Super Low, and both of them actually do like the click list pickup order. And so I know some parents who have been known to place the order for their student and then right at the right time so their student can go pick it up and they don't even have to pay for it. So that has always been nice. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Do you have any last pieces of advice for our parents out there? Deb and Greg, do you want to go first? Oh, wait, I think they might. Oh.
Just to not worry about, they have it under control and they know what they want. It's a great experience. Great experience. The whole 4 years was great.
Tom?
I think the only thing I would mention, I'm repeating myself, but and that is that the university truly offers anybody going there a full college experience, whether they're coming from home and going back every day, or whether they're living on campus or living somewhere along the edge of campus in a rental unit. We've been extremely pleased by just all the experiences with the university. And what we really like about it is a true university. In other words, you can get an undergraduate degree, you can go on for graduate degrees, professional degrees. And it's a huge resource for the city that really, until we moved here, we weren't familiar with it. And once we've been here, as I said, we beat it to death. So it's been great. I mean, if your child's coming here, they'll have a good time, a good experience. And I think they'll get more of an education than you might even be thinking about. We've been very pleased with it in every way.
Susan?
Yes, I would just like to say that just to enjoy this moment of where you are in your life. Life will look different for you, even if your student lives at home and commutes. You know, your dinner table may look different coming up pretty soon, and your life will be changing as well. So just to enjoy all these moments you have with your child right now, and to look forward to these great new memories that you're going to be making as a family as your child goes to college. Hopefully you can come to some games or make a trip onto campus or something. But to know too, I think, and we've all said it here today, that truly you and your family, your child has made a great decision in the University of Memphis. And just to feel confident in that, and to look forward to the great times that are ahead, and just to kind of let go as much as you can of your child, and still be there for them. So again, thanks for all this time, and we're just also glad that everybody's here.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's so wonderful to have you all here and to give your advice to other new parents, because it's a whole new world we live in right at the moment. So it's kind of exciting. And so thank you all for being here. So we will be back in our series in 2 weeks. And our next Tiger Talk will be on July the 9th, and we will have Residence Life. So look forward to seeing our new parents there as well. And we will have another parent panel as well in about a month. So thank you all for joining us, and we really appreciate it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank y'all. Bye.